It's a very good afternoon. You're watching ZTN News Blitz. I'm Christine Masego. Let's take a look at stories making headlines today. Civil servants, government meet over salaries. Violent rains leave 100 people homeless. Harare's ritual crop slashing season begins. And in sports, Musona Benyu fine after picking knocks. Traders in Harare's Mbare suburb, whose illegal stores were demolished by Harare City Council on Saturday, are defiant. It's business as usual, as some of the traders are now trading from their vehicles. Our correspondent, Blessing Monate, is in Mbare to give us more.
I am in Mbare, probably Harare's oldest suburb. And here we understand an exercise was carried out by the City Council on Saturday, demolishing illegal structures. The main concern being that the structures are much closer to the roads that were constructed. Talking to the traders that are here, there are many concerns that they were raising, especially on how the exercise was being conducted, as well as their defiance in actually making a living out of what they do every day. I'm joined right now by Maisimango, who is one of the affected individuals. Maisimango, mungatitaurire chii chiri kuitika pana?
Panapa chiri kuitika ndechekuti isusu takapwanyirwa manje tabva kupwanyirwa ndobva tavaka pasina kana 2 months mbavafti tipwanyira patiri kutengesera ivo pano paripo patinoraramira vazhinji vacho vese vari panapa hapana vane varume apa vese variendesawo nachikoro ndopavanotoraramira ipapo ndopatinotoramira saka tirongoramba tichidzoka tichinhingirika kanzuri kauya ikati bhadharai pamuri kutengesera tinobhadhara nekuti tori redi kuti ngavauye vatipa nzvimbo panapa tovaka tobhadhara kwavari hatisi kuramba bhadhara isusu.
So this is the general sentiment, defiance. Demolitions were carried out on Saturday, hardly 72 hours from there. This long stretch, more than a kilometer of traders on either side of the road. As the traders are back on site, the demolitions may have happened, but the trading is most certainly happening right here in Mbare. And this is the general message that's coming from the traders, to give us space where we can actually trade our wares, and we will be more than willing to oblige. Some of the concerns, of course, that were raised by the vendors was that they are victims of land and space barons, as people do come in to get money from them and make collections, and yet at the same time they're also being victimized and penalized by the City Council. So the cat and mouse games will certainly be not coming to an end anytime soon.
Following Saturday's demolitions, municipal police have intensified raids in the area. Earlier today, our news crew captured this footage of police arriving in Mbare in a truck, forcing vendors to flee in different directions in a bid to avoid arrest and confiscation of their wares. Typical of the day-to-day cat-and-mouse scenario, vendors returned as soon as the truck was out of sight. The vendors remain defiant and have a common plea to be allocated legal vending spaces.
Isusu kuti kune hurumende yedu hatisi kuita nharo kuramba tichitengesera parodhi apa, bara asi tiri kukumbira kuti dai vatiwandirewo pekuti tiendewo tinotengeserawo nenhau yekuti sofa inezvi tandiri mulockdown tine vanovadaona kuchikoro 10 mhuri dzichida kuita sei dzida kuraramawo kutengesawo itori nhau yekuti tiende katoomirwawo inhamo
konyika isina venda murewana kupi nyika isina venda. South Africa ina mavenda, London ina mavenda, London ina mavenda, Zambia ina mavenda. Kwa ino ndo inota mavenda seiko.
City Council zvakaita hazvina kunaka. Ende vaiuya vachitibhadharisa but vakwe vachipwanya $5 to 10 years. Vachiuya vachitora vaine mabhuku avo nemarisisi. Izvo zvakaipa zvavari kuita.
Pandakanzitorai purani yemba ndipo vakabva vatanga kusumudza chigireta chavo, ndobva zvidhina zvakuromoka bva zvandirova paguma. Zvadaro saizvozvo vanhu vakenge vari panze ndobva vakuti musapaze imba inogara munhu, asi ivo ndipo vakabudisa cheni vada kutondisunga, ndobva vazoregedza zvavo nemuromo yevanhu vakenge vakawanda.
Meanwhile, authorities say the affected vendors will be moved to new spaces which government and the local authority will start identifying. Harare Metropolitan Province Minister Oliver Chidau revealed this at a press conference in Harare today.
May I hasten to say that we are mindful of the need to provide alternate workplaces for our people who are affected by the removal of these illegal structures. To this end, we are liaising with the city of Harare, that's why they're here, to identify new areas where traders can be relocated and have mutually beneficial working arrangements with the local authority.
On Wednesday, government and representatives of public sector workers will meet for the first time this year at an Indaba set to lay the guiding framework of how public sector wages and conditions of living will be made better throughout the year. Already, civil servants will receive their $75 United States monthly risk allowance in cash, as will pensioners for their $30 allowances. In 2021, the government paid bonuses in US dollars. Public Service, Labour and Social Welfare Minister Professor Paul Mavima said, "We have our position, but I cannot disclose it to the press before we meet with the employees." He added, "Whatever the outcome, we shall go back to Cabinet where the issue will be discussed. As the employer, we have the best interest of the civil servants at heart." Workers say they are optimistic but cautious. And Zimbabwe Confederation of Public Sector Trade Unions Secretary General David Zatsunga speaks.
What I could say is the taste of the pudding is in the, as they would say, as the adage goes. We are obviously cautiously optimistic because we still have to see what is in the kitty that they are going to bring, and we don't want to celebrate prematurely. So, like I said, we are cautiously optimistic.
Still with salaries, economist Dr. Prosper Chitambara believes improved salaries will boost aggregate demand.
Well, I think it's always right to take good care of your employees. I've always argued that when you do that, you are also ensuring there's sufficient aggregate demand in the economy, which is critical to ensure sustainable growth and development. And of course, that could also then affect macroeconomic stability depending on how that will be financed.
Over 100 people have been left homeless across Zimbabwe after 300 houses were destroyed by heavy rains. The wet season has been characterized by violent rains and flash floods in various parts of the country. Schools and clinics have not been spared. The Department of Civil Protection says Masringo, Matabeleland North, Matabeleland South, Midlands and all Mashonaland provinces are the most affected. Authorities also blame the disasters on properties built using substandard materials and poor workmanship. Department of Civil Protection Director Nathan Gomo speaks to ZTN.
Now that we have a fully fledged ministry responsible for housing and social amenities, I think they will come up with various strategies of ensuring that they showcase what the minimum standards of a rural homestead should look like. Remember, social amenities, because they are not being, what do you call it? They are not being maintained properly. They end up giving in to some of these vagaries of the weather. So maintenance is also an issue. Not only maintenance of social amenities infrastructure, but maintenance of our own houses before the rains come.
Meanwhile, the national dam water level average continues to rise. According to the Zimbabwe National Water Authority, dam levels are averaging 77.3%, which is higher than the 59.7% normally expected during this time of the year. In a statement, the Water Authority said the water held in the dams is sufficient to support summer irrigation requirements as well as the domestic needs for the major cities and towns. Zinwa spokesperson Marjorie Munyonga speaks.
Dam levels in some parts of the country have started rising in response to the wet spell that the country has been experiencing in the past days. As of December 30, 2021, the national dam level average was at 77.3, which is higher than the 59.7 normally experienced during this time of the year. The water held in the dams is sufficient to support the summer irrigation requirements as well as the domestic needs for the major cities and towns in the country.
Every year, the rains trigger farming activity across the country. Local authorities, however, often clash with urban farmers. In Harare, city bylaws prohibit planting on wetlands and other undesignated areas. But some urban farmers defy these laws in a quest to put food on their tables. In response, council sends its police to destroy crops planted on these undesignated areas, prompting outcries from farmers. Will local authorities and urban farmers ever find common ground? Our correspondent Sharon Munjenjema gives us more in the following report.
About 2.4 million people in Zimbabwe cities are struggling to meet basic food needs, says the World Food Programme. Some of them are supplementing their livelihoods by practicing urban farming. But the city authorities are fighting them. Ritual crop slashing has become a regular municipal practice every year, and this year is no exception.
So what the council is doing is sending out notices to people not to cultivate in wetlands or wet areas like villages and what have you. We are actually discouraging people to do such. But however, it has been a cat and mouse chase as always. So we are now sending our municipal enforcement officers to go and enforce in the areas where people are ignoring our call not to cultivate in those areas.
There is concern that chemicals from fertilizers used by farmers are contaminating the city's water sources. City fathers are taking a negative view of urban farming, especially on undesignated areas such as wetlands. But in their quest to protect the environment, the city fathers seem to be also threatening food security for a number of residents. The hapless urban farmers say they will not resist the city's actions.
Hatisi kuramba kuti takarima kuma wetlands makore ese tinongorima pano tichikohwa, but chikumbiro chedu kwatiri ndechekuti handiri kungoona paane chibage apa takasakura tikaisa mafertilizer tikaita zvimwe zvese, saka taingokumbirawo kuti vatimirirewo kusvika munana April May tikohwe chibage tozoregedza zvedu kurima futi.
Isusu takarima noti kuti takaita zvokuti toda kuita go against council, takazviona kuti nzvimbo yaane varidzi, but then takazviita out of faith, tichingoti maybe since vasati vadevelopa nzvimbo yavo tinogona kuwana mukana wekusvika tikohwe handitika, and then kana takohwawo zvoita, but isi takungokumbira ndecheti for humanity sake ngavangotinzwisisawo April May manje tinenge tatokohwa and then otangawo kudevelopa pane kuti vauya wabvisawo chibage chedu chataisa.
Ini muono wangu ndokuti ngavamboregera vanhu, kana varegera vanhu pagore riri kutevera vozoita zvavari kuda kunyatsoita nenzvimbo yavo, ndio mufungiro wangu. Ndakazvimirira kwete kumirira ruzhinji rwese rweHarare South.
Temo uripo chaizo unoti musarime mawetlands panomira mvura pano ivhu rinokukurwa chaizvo tinozoona zviripo temo uripo, asi sisi vabereki tiri kukundikanawo kuti tinorimwa kure mari dzekufamba kuenda kumabhazi kuenda kurema uko uchidzoka up and down yacho hatina ise vabereki venyu, saka chikumbiro chatoisa kwamurimi kuti dai zvazvikwanisikawo tisegore rineriwo maimbotiregererawo mbeu dzedu idzi dzosvikawo.
An urban planning expert says the city should strike a balance between city development and protecting the environment.
There is therefore need for careful and balanced planning to ensure that there is harmony and cities function properly. On the flip side, feeding cities is a growing challenge. Because most populations are moving to cities, there is also a challenge of how to ensure that everyone gets food in the cities. What is key is to ensure that there is proper planning for urban agriculture, there is proper policies, the policies are monitored, they are enforced.
While city fathers discourage farming on wetlands to preserve the environment, major construction projects continue to take place on well-known wetland areas around the city with council's full knowledge and blessings. Sharon Munjenjema, reporting for ZTN News.
A 35-year-old man from Marimba, a suburb in Zimbabwe's capital, Harare, appeared in court facing rape allegations. He is accused of beating a 10-year-old. The court heard that on January 9th, the accused asked the complainant to escort him to a nearby bush to collect a parcel. Upon arrival, he laid the complainant on the ground and raped her while covering her mouth. When he eventually uncovered her mouth, she screamed and was rescued by a passerby, leading to his arrest. Harare Magistrate Yokai Zuda remanded him in custody to the 17th of January for his trial and advised him to approach the High Court for bail. Some 15 million students have gone back to the classroom in Uganda for the first time since March 2020. Classrooms welcomed students back, ending the world's longest school closures. In-person learning has been partially or completely non-existent across the country since the initial COVID lockdown in March 2020. The country's education minister, John Muyingo, said Uganda's 15 million pupils would automatically resume classes a year above where they left off. A United States man has become the first person in the world to get a heart transplant from a genetically modified pig. Doctors say 57-year-old David Bennett is doing well 3 days after the experimental 7-hour procedure. The transplant was considered the last hope of saving Mr. Bennett's life, though it's not yet clear what his long-term chances of survival are. Doctors at the University of Maryland Medical Center were granted a special dispensation by the U.S. medical regulator to carry out the procedure on the basis that Mr. Bennett would otherwise have died. People are struggling to cope with the severe winter in Afghanistan. Recent snow in that country has left destitute families and the homeless facing countless cold and hungry weeks. More than 22 million Afghans are facing acute food shortages. Heavy snow started falling across the country on Monday, bringing new hardships to needy families who have little food to eat and no way to heat their makeshift shelters. A Kabul resident said he could not bear the expenses of daily basic needs.
I have no food at home now, and as you see, the roof is leaking due to the heavy snowfall, but I have nothing to cover it with. I even asked 10 relatives for some cash to buy something to stop the leak. But it's not just me who's in difficulty. Everyone in the village is the same.
Up next is sports news. Stay with us. Warriors captain Knowledge Musona and midfielder Kundai Benyu have recovered after being subbed off in yesterday's 0-1 loss to Senegal due to injuries. The two were stretchered off, and there had been fears the duo would miss the next match against Malawi on Friday. But coach Norman Mapeza has told ZTN that both are fine and expected to have fully recovered when the team resumes training tomorrow. Zimbabwe are in Group B together with Senegal, Guinea and Malawi. Correspondent Thaddeus Manyepo, who is in Cameroon, spoke to Mapeza.
I've been talking to the team doctors this morning. Even yesterday I spoke to Knowledge at halftime. I think he felt that he was having something like flu, so he was feeling a little bit tired. But he said he could push maybe for about 20 or so minutes. That's why we kept him in the game. But we've got some flu like symptoms. But the doctor saying he's fine. Then for Kunda, I think he just had a knock. They said that he was not tendon, but it's not something bad. So we'll see tomorrow how they'll be feeling, because that's when we're gonna start our training session. Today we just did the recovery. We're gonna give the guys some rest. Then tomorrow we'll see how they'll be feeling.
Meanwhile, the Warriors have received a major boost. This follows the recovery of utility star player Jordan Zemura from a COVID-19 bout which had kept him at his base in Bournemouth, England, over the past week. Warriors manager Wellington Mbandare told ZTN the 22-year-old has already left England on his way to Cameroon.
Zemura left Manchester City today in the morning, and is arriving in Yaoundé around 20:30. And then we have dispatched a car that is going to pick him up, but they will spend a night in Yaoundé, and then tomorrow morning they will leave Yaoundé, and it will take about 5 hours to get to Bafoussam. So we expect him to be with the other guys tomorrow before we go for training. He tested negative yesterday, so all is well. Just looking forward to his arrival.
Zimbabwe cricket senior men's team coach Lalchand Rajput will miss the first 2 matches against Sri Lanka. Rajput tested positive for COVID-19 upon arrival in Sri Lanka yesterday. The coach linked up with the squad in Sri Lanka as he was travelling from India. The first ODI is on January 16th, while the second will be played 2 days later. ZTN spoke to Zimbabwe cricket communications manager Darlington Majonga.
Despite testing positive, Rajput is well and not showing any symptoms of the coronavirus disease. He is now quarantined in Colombo, while the rest of the Zimbabwe squad proceeded to Kandy, where we are in isolation until Wednesday as part of the biosecure bubble protocols for the tour. Our practice sessions are expected to start on Thursday, and the actual games, which are part of the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup Super League, will be day-night affairs scheduled for 16, 18 and 21 January 2022 at the Pallekele International Cricket Stadium.
Sri Lanka's batter Avishka Fernando also tested positive for COVID-19. The opener returned a positive result before the team's biosecure bubble was formed on Sunday. Local cricket is set for a return tomorrow as Alliance Health Eagles take on Mountaineers in a Pro 50 championship match at Harare Sports Club. The domestic cricket season was halted in December last year after a spike in COVID-19 cases among the teams. Eagles and Mountaineers will play tomorrow and on Friday, with the winner of the tie facing Rocks in the final. Both teams are missing some players who are with the national team in Sri Lanka. In tennis news, Novak Djokovic is back in training ahead of the Australian Open after winning an appeal against the decision to refuse him a visa. The Serb tweeted yesterday that he's focused on playing at the Australian Open. He also thanked the fans who have supported him during his days in detention. And that's it from us today on News Blitz. Stay connected with us on Twitter at ZTN News, YouTube at ZTN, and our website ztn.co.zw for these stories and more updates. Thanks for watching.